So, folks, there is this organization called ICE, and it's dedicated to, as far as I can tell as a lay observer, rounding up poor people off the streets who are darker skinned and putting them into concentration camps. So that's basically all I can ascertain from what they do. It seems like they stake out schools and courthouses where people are minding their own business and following the law, and just round them up en masse. And it's kind of scary, actually. They're usually masked. They don't identify themselves. They are stealing the people who work on taco trucks, and I love tacos, you know? So it seems like maybe these guys are bad. And I'm not alone in thinking that. Here's a new poll on immigration here from Gallup, courtesy of Prem Thakur from Zeteo News. Shout out to Zeteo. Trump approval on immigration has slipped to 35%, which that's incredible. That is his strongest issue. He has a 62% disapproval rating on his strongest issue. The overall approval of immigration and immigrants is 79%. 78% of people support a pathway to citizenship. Like he's actively harming the belief in the cause that he's saying the American people gave him a mandate to pursue. And I mean, this is still a shockingly high number, but 38% support mass deportation. That's down almost 10 points from the election. It turns out that people are actually looking around and saying, hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. When I was holding that mass deportations now sign, I didn't know that meant, masked thugs in military gear were going to be occupying our cities and arresting people who are trying to sell food and abducting children from schools. I didn't know that was going to happen. And should you have known? Absolutely. There's no possible way of doing a mass deportation without incredible acts of state violence. But at the very least, it's good that the approval isn't going up. Let's maybe agree on the fact that at the moment, it is good that more people are coming to the realization that this is in fact bad and undesirable, and that we should maybe fight this via the ways we have available to us. Also very interesting, a last figure here, 30% want a decrease in immigration, which is down 25%. In 2024, 55% of people polled wanted immigration to decrease. It's down by 25%. 25 points. That's crazy. You can act the graph is actually even more wild here. You can see it over time as it's tracked, and you can see it how it breaks down Republicans versus Democrats. Partisan views on immigration's effect on the U.S. On the whole, do you think immigration is a good thing or a bad thing for this country today? And it absolutely tanks during the 2024 election. Right here, you can see it just as Republicans fearmonger and fearmonger and fearmonger and fearmonger about immigrants. And now suddenly that the policies are being enacted, wait, actually immigrants, what they actually form the majority of our workforce in the fields, allowing us to eat food. Oh wait, they actually are doing a lot of the menial jobs that we rely on, like cleaning and cooking and doing the things that make life possible for us in both big cities and rural areas. Wait a minute, maybe we need these people. Maybe immigrants are actually good people after all, and not all members of gangs who are here to rape and kill us. The sudden dawning realization is happening to hit, and unfortunately, it's happening to hit after the Trump administration voted to quadruple the funding for ICE and voted to make the entire Border Patrol apparatus have a budget larger than the entire military of Russia. Like, understand, like, the ballooning here has been insane. We now spend more money in this country from the federal government on, like, detaining people via ICE than we do on like building affordable housing for people who are homeless or for veterans. Like, what we're doing in this country is prioritizing a police state that is meant to weaponize itself against not just immigrants, but against all of us. This is effectively going to build, in a long-term sense, a military force that can be deployed on American soil with less oversight than the actual U.S. military. So that's not great. That's bad, actually. Now, Alan Smith, the budget that has been approved for the entire Border Patrol apparatus is essentially, like, I think it's like 150 billion, 170 billion. I forget the number right off the top of my head, but like Russia's military budget is like 130 billion. And now I do want to say there are a couple caveats here before we go into full-blown panic mode. Thankfully, this budget doesn't, it requires time to actually roll out. The money needs to be allocated and spent. A huge chunk of that money goes to building new detention facilities that are going to be concentration camps. They're going to be modeled after this alligator Auschwitz situation they have going on in the Florida Everglades. Okay? And what is going to happen with a large chunk of this money is essentially it's going to be siphoned away by the private prisons that are being contracted to build these tent cities, these concentration camps, right? Because, of course, all of them are privatized. They're built by federal contractors. So this is, in essence, a major handout to the private prison industrial complex. And understand that, additionally, they are deliberately capping the number of immigration judges. So part of what happens in this bill, right, is that if you, say, wanted to process immigrants to get them deported faster, what you would want to do is you'd want to fully fund, like, immigration judges. So we have a bunch of immigration judges that can quickly process people and get them deported, right? Well, the budget bill the Republicans passed actually caps the number of immigration judges at only 100 more than we currently have. And what that means is the mass building of these camps is meant to detain immigrants long term. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, a lot of these private facilities, these again, concentration camps, they utilize the people in those camps for labor. They price phone calls to families or lawyers behind a paywall. Many of the people who are detained don't have money. So what ends up happening is if you want to call your family from one of these camps, you have to do labor. This is a concentration forced labor system, essentially. If you want to move your way through this, that's what this is going to be, right? Now, what ends up being perhaps a saving grace is that this is going to take time to fully roll out. It is going to take approval from states in order to build these camps. It is going to take the acquiescence of local city governments to build these facilities. It is going to take a lot of people who are complicit with supplying these facilities, with housing ICE agents who are staffing these facilities. It is going to take a lot of resources surrounding this to build this apparatus and get it up off the ground. Okay? So the saving grace here is that is an awful lot of money, and it's going to take time to hire the additional staff that is being added. For example, luckily right now they are only aiming at hiring around 10,000 additional ICE officers, which sounds like a lot, but understand that, like, basically all of ICE's resources have been deployed to, like, LA. And, like, 10,000 ICE agents is a lot. It's not enough to, like, occupy every city in the United States. It's just logistically not feasible. So what's going to be happening is there are going to be these raids that are ongoing to build up this kind of indentured servitude force of people coerced into doing labor. And it's going to get really, really, really bad. It's not going to get, and hopefully one of the stopgaps we have here is that in 2026, Democrats are able to retake the House and the Senate. And that could provide some measure of like defense, some measure of like a wrench in the gears, as it were, to slow down the appropriation of these funds. Because again, Congress has the power of the purse. So if we are able to do that, the worst aspects of this can still be countered, because a lot of this is going to try and build the infrastructure. A not insubstantial amount of this is going to towards restarting the border wall construction. Like a lot of it is going into pet projects that are effectively meaningless for any kind of real crackdown of the kind we are desperately worried about. That being said, I'm not going to bullshit you. This is going to get really ugly and it's going to get really bad. Okay? And I think that part of our organizing demands, as we organize towards 2026, as we organize towards 2028, it needs to be front and center. We need the dismantling of this apparatus. Keep in mind, ICE is younger than basically all of you. If you are old enough to be in this chat, ICE is younger than you. Chances are. So understand that we brought it into this world and we can fucking take it out. There is no place for it in a civilized society. What we need to start doing is we need to, like, essentially call them what they are. They are our modern day secret police. They are our modern day Gestapo. We must revile them with the same kind of like hatred and revulsion we reserve for actual SS officers. These are people who are dedicating their day-to-day lives to arresting like abuelitas who are trying to sell mangoes on the side of the road. They're spending their time trying to chase down construction workers outside of Home Depots who are just there to help you build a house. You know, they're going after fucking landscapers. They're going after the people selling tacos on the corner. And they are getting like untold amounts of power. And understand that the ultimate purpose of that power does not end at arresting undocumented immigrants. It doesn't end at arresting, legal immigrants. It doesn't end at arresting naturalized citizens. It ends with them arresting and detaining anyone who is inconvenient to the state. That is what this is. Understand, when you see ICE, you are seeing an active enemy, not just of you yourself, of all your neighbors, but an enemy of the very ideals that America represents. Okay? They are absolutely irredeemable. And when this is over, we must dismantle the powers that they have. We must dismantle the logistics centers they have. We must dismantle these camps and offer pathways to citizenship for basically every single person they have detained. We must, in fact, be better. We must be better than returning to status quo. We must fix this. Okay? And, this is some local reporting from Spokane, Washington. Federal government accuses 9 Spokane protesters of violence against ICE. And as you can see, they're very dangerous looking, these protesters. Just some of the most dastardly individuals you can possibly imagine. And it's truly disgusting. Let's see. FBI agents on Tuesday morning arrested and searched the home of at least one of multiple people who took part in protest against U.S. immigration and customs enforcement in Spokane. Among those arrested was former Spokane City Council President Ben Stuckert, who is charged with conspiracy to impede or injure law enforcement, according to court records. So basically, they are trying to allege that these protesters came together in a massive conspiracy against ICE, and they are in fact arresting one of the former political leaders of the city. This needs to be again. Don't let this chill your desire to protest. Okay, don't let this prevent you from going out there and protesting, but understand they might come after you. Wear a mask, obfuscate your identity. Don't bring your phone to a protest, okay? And also continue to bring others with you. We have strength in numbers. The more people that show up to these protests, the safer we all are. And remember when I said earlier that like these people are showing up at schools and like trying to like catch children? Here's a very interesting TikTok I saw the other day about a high school coach who saved a bunch of his kids from being possibly detained by ICE or their parents detained by ICE. Let's take a look.
Academy founder Yeoman Wilder was coaching middle and high school students there on July 3rd when he says 6 ICE officers walked through the park past the basketball courts.
But I didn't really think too much about it. I just think, okay, they're ICE officers, because I'd seen them in Washington Heights before.
But then he says they approached the kids and started asking questions.
Where they're from, who are their parents, and I just thought, whoa, this is not good.
Wilder has a master's degree in law and told them they didn't need to answer those questions.
I told my kids to walk to the back of the cages, right here. And I said, they're going to invoke their Fifth Amendment rights. They're not going to say anything.
He says one of the officers raised his voice.
That's when I was called a YouTube lawyer. And I said, no, I just know how the Constitution works.
And all of the kids, he says, are American citizens.
Their parents are, from the Dominican Republic, South America, Mexican, Africa. But they're kids who are born here. They have a 14th Amendment entitlement to live here.
We've reached out to Homeland Security to verify that ICE officers were here, but have yet to get a response. Wilder says they were armed, in uniform, with clearly labeled vests.
They look like the real thing to me. From what I've seen.
I mean, honestly, the fact that this guy has to be like, well, they looked like ICE officers because they didn't provide any clear identification, of their like identities, badge numbers, etc. He has to assume that they are real ICE agents rather than absolute vigilante creeps. In some parts of the country, in conservative states, they are offering, in some cases, like essentially bounties on undocumented immigrants. There are stories of like people posing as ICE agents to make money off of those bounties.
In Washington Heights, what I saw that day.
And he's reached out to local elected officials, like Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal, who says he was right to advise the kids.
No one has the right to take you away or to get any of your information.
I never in my life thought this was going to happen on the Upper West Side in New York City. That whole thing, until it happens to you, you're not aware, and it happened to us.
Since the incident last week, the coach says he changed their practice time, but the kids and their parents are so worried that only 2 of them have been back. On the Upper West Side, Sonia Rincon, Channel 7, Eyewitness News.
Again, this is going to hit everywhere at some point soon. They are going to try and massively ramp up their operations, and it is incumbent upon us to be ready for when these leeches on society show up demanding things from us. Okay? And when we're talking about, hey, these people are just being disappeared into ICE facilities, into these essentially concentration camps. Because again, even the existing facilities that might not have previously been considered concentration camps are now being overpopulated. They are having their maximum limits absolutely obliterated. They're putting way too many people into the existing holding facilities. And what that means is that the administration is utterly overwhelmed with the amount of people that are actually going into these facilities. And in some cases, people are just like disappearing into these facilities. They aren't like, their names aren't being properly recorded, or and this is especially true, by the way, of trans undocumented immigrants or trans people who might be, documented immigrants who disappear into these facilities. They aren't being held under their actual names. And so some people just don't know what's been happening to them. And here is, this is a a person who is going to the outside of ICE facilities and trying to figure out who is in them by shouting with a megaphone at the holding facilities to get confirmation with lights or shouts that someone by that name is in the facility.
He's reading off of social media where people are saying, can you find this person? Can you find that person? Are they there? Because they don't know where their loved ones are. So people shine a light if it's them. We've been able to identify 2 people, but there's someone tapping on the wall here and I don't know where it's coming from. What was that? Yeah, I do. Because how are you supposed to find them? If no, they won't. They're not telling people where their families are detained.
Francisco Lorenzo Martínez de Oaxaca. Francisco Lorenzo Martínez de Oaxaca.
Yeah, so we're trying to find people.
They're again. This is what ICE is doing. This is what the detention system in the United States has become. The U.S. government that is spiriting people away, disappearing them like some kind of again authoritarian government that is just treating people as disposable things. Is just throwing them into a cell and forgetting about them. Okay? And it's truly, truly awful. And I just want to say shout out to Lorena Cleary on Blue Sky. Been doing a great job covering a lot of these on-the-ground protests that I might not otherwise be able to find. Who writes, the search for missing loved ones is international. Families all over the world are trying to find their members who have disappeared due to the U.S. government. This week, the Miami Herald obtained a list of detainees at Alligator Alcatraz, but for many others unnamed, scattered at detainment centers nationwide and even abroad, families need answers. Locally, it's clear there's no repairing the holes the government has created in our country. Many of the detained have been community members for decades. The impact is felt everywhere and growing as the numbers increase. The missing employee, the shop owner, the grandmother, the schoolmate. The fabric of the nation is being shred. And that's true. Pretty soon we're all going to know someone who is gone. There is going to be an emptiness in our lives left by the immense damage of this evil GOP administration. These people are not disposable. They are pillars of their communities. They contribute to our collective richness as a society, and they're being thrown away. And if you think, oh, well, at least, no, they're only going after the bad ones. I got bad news for you. Here's some new information coming out of Florida, courtesy of Aaron Reichlin Melnick, who is I believe, senior fellow at the American Immigration Council. Excellent resource for you guys to look in on, by the way. Who says, Florida is sending random undocumented immigrants pulled over in traffic stops to the Everglades detention camp. And because the whole thing was set up haphazardly, they still don't have any easy way to find out if someone is detained there, like at any normal detention center or jail. And also, again, yes, enforced disappearance is a violation of international law. So the U.S. doing crimes on the regular. Cool. It's truly, truly awful. Also, one reason for this is that the Florida Highway Patrol is doing the stuff Border Patrol is doing in LA. The Washington Examiner's immigration reporter did a ride along with them and, well, basically described what were quite obviously extremely pretextual stops for immigration enforcement purposes. Here's the Washington Examiner, a conservative rag who was allowed to roll around with, the Florida Gestapo. A large truck delivering plants was pulled over for what the officer suspected was too dark a tint, which is pretty on the nose. that showed not to be the case. You know, again, like literally, literally, like the reporter's just like, yeah, this officer said the windows were too dark, but that turned out not to be true. But, you know, while we had them pulled over, the three men in the backseat disobeyed orders to stay inside, so the officers detained them, then asked for ID. That's when their lack of immigration status came out. And, like, you didn't pull them over because the windows were too dark. They got pulled over because the skin was too dark. Let's take a look at another one of these incidents. Next, a Florida trooper stopped a dump truck after he observed a passenger was not wearing a seatbelt, and the truck's cover was not pulled across to prevent the load from spilling out. Passenger had a DUI conviction and been deported. The driver did not have a license and had lost his privilege to operate a vehicle. And yeah, you observed the passenger wasn't wearing their seatbelt in a dump truck? Have you ever seen a dump truck before? This is just like, it's honestly just papers, please. It's literally like, you got your papers? No? We're going to send you to a concentration camp. And by the way, this isn't limited to just pretextual stops based on race. This is also fabricating assaults on ICE officers. Another ICE assault case unravels. Border Patrol and ICE are arresting U.S. citizens, and then after they find out that they are U.S. citizens, they are charging them with assault to justify their actions. This is clearly DHS policy at this point. We've seen it repeatedly now. Let's take a look at one of them, okay? Let's take a look at this one. Ramirez then allegedly ran towards the agent who was standing near the entrance of the parking lot and collided with them. The impact of the collision allegedly threw the Border Patrol agent off balance and caused the agent's phone to fall to the ground. When the agent questioned Ramirez about his citizenship, the feds claimed that Ramirez refused to talk to them, despite video footage showing that Ramirez repeatedly told agents he had his passport on him. The agent also accused Ramirez of resisting arrest and biting them on their left thigh, according to the complaint, which I don't know if you guys have seen ICE agents these days. They're like suited up like they're ready to fucking parachute into a war zone. So I doubt there's going to be a bite on your thigh, but okay. Ramirez was eventually taken into custody and transported to the Federal Detention Center on Alameda Street in downtown Los Angeles. During processing, the federal agent who arrested Ramirez confirmed that he is an American citizen, according to the complaint. On June 16th, Ramirez was released on bond. 3 weeks later, on July 6th, the U.S. Attorney's Office filed a motion to drop charges against Ramirez, which, that's so weird, because if you had solid evidence of him assaulting an officer, one would think that you would pursue those charges based on that evidence. It's kind of seems like you just arrested this guy and claimed he assaulted you in order to, I don't know, make his day bad because he inconvenienced you. These people are evil. Like, ICE agents are just evil. You should think of them as like stormtroopers from Star Wars, except less competent. Now, if you're thinking, wait a minute, wait, Jack, you were talking about the Florida Everglades concentration camp? Wait a minute, you're trying to say that like people are just, I don't know, being sent there for like no reason, like they're being detained by Florida like traffic cops and sent to a concentration camp? Despite like not being criminals. And yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, as well as the Miami Herald, the local newspaper of note. 250 people detained in the Florida Everglades have no criminal convictions or pending charges. Literally just people who live and work in the community who are rounded up by these goddamn Gestapo agents, ripped from their families, ripped from their jobs, and put into what is objectively inhumane conditions. They put cages in the middle of a swamp with inadequate food, ventilation, cooling, medical care, or administrative capacity to even keep track of who all's there, and then laughed about anyone who might get too out of line would get eaten by alligators. This is Gestapo shit. Now, also, I would like to point out here, members of Congress went to go visit one of these facilities. And I want to talk about this because it's, and we'll get back to alligator Auschwitz, don't you guys worry. But also I wanted to talk about this because I think this is pretty interesting and pretty disturbing. This is Representative Veronica Escobar. This week, ICE illegally denied me entry into a processing facility in my district, and today they released a statement saying I gave the appearance of a political stunt intended to generate publicity rather than pursue genuine oversight. I have some thoughts. And I also have some thoughts. And those thoughts are, as a member of Congress, you have the it's undisputable. You have the undisputable right to, with no notice, tour an ICE facility to make sure that human rights are being maintained in said facility. You cannot deny a member of Congress entry because you think they're trying to do a political stunt. You don't get to decide that. And unfortunately, we are now in an era where the Trump administration is trying to argue that actually they can do that. They can unilaterally override Congress despite the explicit text of the law. And I just have to say, again, the court cases are piling up. The evidence is piling up, and the Supreme Court is doing nothing to rein in the Trump administration. It is deeply, deeply disturbing, to say the least. They have put the president and the executive branch above the law. So let's continue with Representative Escobar. On Tuesday morning, my staff notified ICE of my intent to conduct oversight at the Montana Avenue facility the next day. This is the process we have gone through innumerable times since I was elected, through both the Trump and Biden admins, including less than a month ago. ICE responded, informing me and my staff about their new procedures. We informed them of the law. And again, good afternoon. Unfortunately, we're unable to support a visit to the El Paso facility on 7/9/25. The department is now requiring requests to be made 7 calendar days in advance for scheduling. Please let us know whether we can help you schedule a future visit. And I just want to say right off the bat, the reason they're trying to require 7 days of forewarning that a member of Congress is coming to visit is because of the absolutely unacceptable and inhumane conditions. That is the only reason to try and institute a policy like this. They are trying to clean stuff up, to cover it up. They are trying to buy time so that they can effectively make things look as nice as they can for members of Congress. That is 100% what is happening here. A very similar thing, by the way, happened with the concentration camps in Nazi Germany. There was a specialized camp set aside by the Nazis specifically for the Red Cross to inspect, and the children and the people in that camp were given slightly better food, slightly better medical condition, slightly better sleeping arrangements, etc. And that is because the Red Cross visited that camp. They are trying to ensure no one can visit these facilities so that they don't have to try and make things look nice, so that they can mistreat these people with all of the hatred in their hearts. That is what ICE is trying to do. I would have preferred to quietly conduct my oversight responsibilities as I always have, but ICE chose not to follow the law. These guidelines are illegal, and that deserves public scrutiny. Yeah, also, they basically just responded by quoting the law. I have every intention of continuing my oversight responsibilities and fighting back against the lawlessness of this administration every chance I get. Plus, the department, led by a secretary best known for cosplaying that she's in a war zone, should perhaps not lecture anyone on publicity stunts. That being said, I really, really wish there was a better ending to this story. It's bad. Also, I gotta say, if you're trying to hold Veronica Escobar as at least she's doing something, I gotta say I'm pretty not pleased with how this story ends.
And next week, Mark, you're hearing it here first, I will be reintroducing a bipartisan immigration bill, the Dignity Act. My colleague, Maria Salazar from Miami, a Republican, a dear friend of mine, she and I worked 3 years ago on the first bipartisan comprehensive immigration reform bill introduced in the House in a decade. No bipartisan duo had done that in the House in 10 years. But she and I worked for about 7 months on a bill that addressed border security, but also legal pathways so that our country benefits from immigration. We know that if we solve the immigration challenges that we face, we can have a stronger economy, and we can do that. The bill that we're introducing next week is a little bit different given the current political environment, but I'm very excited about it. We have even more co-sponsors, original co-sponsors, than we had the first time we did it, and I am very determined to resolve this issue this Congress. And next.
Now, you might be thinking to yourselves, what does that mean? Like, obviously, whenever a Democrat, oh my God, stop. Whenever a Democrat says bipartisan, that is, that's interesting. Let's take a look at what's in that act, shall we? Okay. Our legislation can be broken up into 4 sections: legal status and protections for undocumented immigrants, border security, asylum reform, and visa reform. 1. Eligible undocumented immigrants could enroll in our newly created Dignity program that would grant legal status, work and travel authorities, as well as protections in this permanently renewable status, which that's good, but I gotta say, I would not fault any undocumented immigrant for not trusting signing up for a program that identifies them as undocumented immigrants right now in this environment. I would not trust the US government to uphold their end of the deal on this one. 2, the border security section has funding for border infrastructure and equipment, as well as CPP agents and officers. Fuck all the way off. You just got a budget the bigger than the Russian military, and you're already trying to give them more money? Fuck you. It updates their training and provides new guidelines, such as making it unlawful to carry out immigration enforcement actions in places like schools, hospitals, places of worship, courthouses, and more. And like, okay, that's great, I guess. I don't know that they care about the law, though. So I'm worried about that as well, given the fact that they aren't currently caring about the law. 3, under current law, the only way to claim asylum is to declare your intention to seek asylum at the border. Our asylum reform section establishes 3 regional processing centers across Latin America so that immigrants can legally seek asylum without making the dangerous trek through the Western Hemisphere to the United States, which I think that one's good. I do think that one is good. I think that could help some people. But also, like, holy shit. Finally, the visa reform section addresses long-ignored backlogs to ensure our country remains competitive. It's time Congress finally addresses our broken immigration system in a fair, orderly way that benefits our country. And this bill is dead in the water. This bill is absolutely dead in the water. Democrats like this, like, there's just no hope. And like, she even saw the backlash, right? She saw the backlash to this, and her response is interesting to say the least. I know plenty of people are frustrated in the comments, but my view is that this is one single step in the right direction, and doing nothing isn't an option. Guaranteeing legal protection for over 10 million undocumented people in our country matters to me. And like, I agree that yes. But also, I don't trust this government to actually follow the law. That's kind of a problem, you know? There are plenty of people with legal status who have had it summarily stripped away for literally no reason other than cruelty. Other than, well, the executive branch said they don't get it anymore. So, and I don't see how this is any different from that. One might say, well, this is passed by Congress, but like, I genuinely don't know if the current administration, I don't know that would stop them. Now, let's go back to this, let's go back to Alligator Auschwitz in the Florida Everglades. One of my personal up-and-coming Democrats who I quite like, who is big in Florida, Anna Eskamani, is one of the state-level legislators who visited this Alligator Auschwitz camp. And let's listen to what she had to say about this.
Hey everyone, it's Representative Dr. Anavi Eskamani. I'm here in the parking lot at the Everglades Immigration Detention Center. We just finished our tour, which of course was scheduled and very curated. They did not allow us to speak to any detainees. They gave us about 60 to 90 seconds to look into one of the detainment tents.
I'm sorry, you're exercising oversight ability, and they have the ability to just say you have You have 30 seconds to look inside this tent. To see, we're treating them so well. That's why we limit how long you can look inside the tent at their conditions.
And
like, come on.
When you try to walk forward, they immediately stopped you. And of course, it was really frustrating because one of the most important things to do when you're in this situation is to have a conversation with those directly impacted. And we got those 60 seconds looking at this.
Now, I'm not sure if she has, I'm not sure if state level politicians have congressional authority to inspect. So it's possible that like she was subject to more conditions than like a member of Congress would be. But like, she's still a representative in the state legislature of Florida. Like, the fact that she can be bossed around by ICE agents is kind of nuts. Or Border Patrol agents.
Room with 250 people, about 32 per cage.
Yeah, by the way, they're all kept in cages inside of these tents. So 32 people per cage is I don't know if there's any humanity left in conservatives, but when you hear that people are being kept in literal cages and that the method of measuring how like the occupancy is, oh, there are 32 people per cage. Does that not fill you with a kind of primal revulsion? Does your conscience not awaken slightly to the fact that this is what you are allowing through your support of this administration? Is there no like beating heart left in your chest that feels? Any person of conscience, regardless of political party, must dedicate themselves to fighting this tooth and nail. By any means you have available to you. Like, this should be one of the primary fights of our generation, because this is evil shit. Yeah, Noxie, you are 100% correct. 32 people is more than school children are in a class in many schools. In one cage.
And we're chanting freedom in Spanish. With that said, we learned that there is anywhere from, I think it was 800, 900 individuals here. They could plan to potentially go up to 3,000, 4,000 in the future. And we're just now learning that a process has been created for attorneys to talk to their clients, but the whole intention is individuals here are essentially deported within 2 weeks. And so it's so important to make sure that folks have legal representation and that they access those lawyers, but it's, of course, unclear what that process looks like.
By the way, one of the reasons you need to get involved in your local politics in a meaningful way, not in some kind of LARPy bullshit way, but like in an actual way that moves the needle, you need to go to the goddamn meetings. Because one of the things we can do to stop this, one of the things you can do in your local area is make sure there is no cooperation between your local law enforcement and ICE. One thing you can do in your local government is make sure that no ICE facility or Border Patrol facility gets built and staffed in your area. Get involved in your local politics so you can say fuck no when these creeps come knocking at your door wanting to build a new private facility. Oh, it'll create jobs. You know what? We're going to develop the land. It'll spur business and innovation. Get in that room so you can say fuck no. Because one of the things we need to do is we need to be the wrench in the works. We need to be breaking the gears of this machine actively until we are in a position of power to fully dismantle it. We need to slow down the rollout that they are trying to do right now in every corner of the country. Slow it down until we can destroy it.
I am still processing a lot of what we just saw on this tour, and I have a lot of conversations I have to have and people I need to talk to. So I'll share more updates as we have them, but it was very frustrating that we weren't able to really talk to anyone directly impacted. And again, this is why we need that type of unfettered access, like we have with any incarceral environment, where we can talk to folks without being stopped.
This is why we need people and Democrats and like actual politicians who are willing to fight. We need actual people who are willing to fight, because anyone who is sitting around on their thumbs with their thumbs up their ass at this point seeing this shit happening in the country and saying, well, don't worry, in 2026 we'll retake the House and everything will be fine, and then we'll get him in 2028. We don't have that much time. We cannot allow this to be built while we just sit around twiddling our thumbs and people around us go missing. We can't do that at all.
People are aroused. I haven't seen people so aroused in a very, very long time.
God, fuck Chuck Schumer.
And the Florida.
Here, we gotta take a look. Here's another news clip here about this.
Everglades, dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. They chose to hold a vigil on the 4th because they are against using the land for immigration enforcement. Channel 9's Giovanni Diaz joins us live in the studio. Gio, you spoke with the leadership group there.
Yeah, Darlene, just about 15 minutes ago, they're headed to the facility right now for that vigil that starts at 2 p.m. This comes as hundreds of Marines have been deployed to help with the operations at the new facility. As the first wave of undocumented immigrants arrived at the...
Yeah, so cool. They're deploying Marines to help staff the facility.
New detention center in the Florida Everglades on Thursday.
There's a reason why we need immediate access.
Democratic law.
Yeah. Is this what you signed up for in the U.S. military? So you could go and station yourself around a camp in the Everglades that's holding hundreds of innocent people who have had no due process whatsoever as they are starved in cages. This is what you signed up for in the U.S. military?
Lawmakers were blocked from entering the facility. They say they wanted to see firsthand the conditions detainees would be exposed to, but they were turned away.
This process has
Isn't that illegal? The military isn't supposed to do domestic enforcement? Well, yeah, it's also supposed to be illegal to deploy the Marines to L.A. But guess what? They did that anyway.
occur with no transparency whatsoever, with Governor Ron DeSantis handing out contracts to his friends to build what is essentially a concentration camp.
The Florida Division of Emergency Management cited safety concerns as the reason why they were not allowed in, but they did not go into detail.
We can't look, we have hundreds of people here, but we can't allow any other people in because there would be safety concerns. This is just evil Nazi shit and they don't want people to know what's going on. Full stop.
This comes as the U.S. Northern Command is sending out about 200 Marines to help ICE with immigration enforcement at the facility. They will help with administrative and logistical capabilities.
That's how they're working around deploying Marines. They're basically making the Marines do paperwork to run these centers. And that's how they're saying, oh, they're not doing law enforcement. They're just doing administrative work. Don't you get it? We're being cute.
The facility, nicknamed Alligator Alcatraz, will house thousands of undocumented immigrants in the process.
I tried so hard. I tried so hard in the election to avoid this outcome because I knew it was going to get this bad.
Of deportation. The structure was built in less than 10 days, and the project was led by the state's Division of Emergency Management.
And by the way, they're all these conservatives in Florida are like, yeah, we built this in 10 days. Look at us go. We're so cool. We built an entire facility in 10 days. It's literally you put up a tent. You put up a tent and cages, and you're starving and mistreating the people who are in there. You did not accomplish any great feat here. Why do people keep asking if it's legal or not, as they aren't going to do it regardless, and then get praised for it? Well, I think because in a sane world, it should matter whether or not it's legal. I think that a lot of people are still clinging to this idea that we are in some degree of normalcy, and we just aren't. You know, we have gone off the rails, and honestly, what needs to happen is the kind of organizing that sets the stage for legal intervention that is actually effective. Courts are far more likely to enforce the law if there are mass demonstrations of millions of people in the streets. They are far more likely to enforce the law against an administration that is actively being opposed by millions of people. And we need to build up the organizational capacity to do that. Our number one asset is not weaponry. Our number one asset is our labor and our ability to work together. Those are our two main abilities as citizenry of this country. And we need to learn how to utilize both of those if we have any hope of digging ourselves out of this fascist hellhole we are currently in. Okay?
The facility has faced...
How long until they just start busting into apartment complexes looking for undocumented immigrants? I'm pretty sure that's already happening.
Backlash, especially from environmental groups who say the operations will harm wildlife and native lands in the Everglades.
We're seeing not only sacred lands and wildlife and people that have had the right to be here and have had a fight for the right to be here for so long, to take that away and to call it because it's for the greater good. I don't see the point in, I don't see the relevance in that.
So there is another facility expected to open in just the next few days. This one will be in Jacksonville. Now, the big concerns that we have been seeing over and over again is who is actually going to pay for the cost of those facilities here in the state. We'll have a closer look at that coming up in the 4 o'clock news. Reporting live here in studio.
Who's going to pay for it, though? Like, I don't know. Maybe we should just, like... have a more drastic conversation about the fact that there's a lawmaker in your state talking about how there's a goddamn concentration camp that has actively been built and is actively holding people right now in 2025. Here is another lawmaker after completing their tour of the facility.
It was repeated over and over that the state is working hand in glove with ICE. This facility was inspected by ICE.
And by the way, this is going to be one of the big differences. If you live in a blue state, you need to mobilize all of the resources at your disposal in order to make sure you get active in your political scene. Because what we're seeing happening in Florida is preventable. It is preventable in blue states where you can amass enough power. 100%. If you mobilize your local political resources, you can, in fact, stop them from building facilities. You can, in fact, stop your local law enforcement from cooperating with ICE and Border Patrol. And I would argue you have an imperative duty to try and do that.
They review their detention standards. They are using...
It will make it much, much easier for protesters to protest ICE if some or all of you get involved in stopping the political machinations that are required for them to expand their operations.
Cages. These detainees are living...
What about me? I'm in a red state. You should still be organizing towards that end anyway. I'm just saying it is not a foregone conclusion that we can stop this. And we should be trying to do that.
Living in cages. The pictures that you've seen don't do it justice. They are essentially packed into cages, wall-to-wall humans, 32 detainees per cage. The only thing inside those cages are their bunk beds, and there are 3 tiny toilets that are toilet units that have a sink attached to it. So they essentially drink, they get their drinking water and they brush their teeth, where they poop in the same unit. They bragged that they went above standards, supposedly, and gave them a 3-foot privacy wall that stretches the length inside the 32 detainee cage, a 3-foot privacy wall that stretches the length of the 3 toilets in a row. The showers provide no privacy at all. There are no curtains on it. It's a big open shower unit. There are, small walls in each shower. But, we're talking about all 900 men who are held in this facility. It is built currently for 1,000, and they have no privacy at all when they're showering. For meals, when we walked through the quote-unquote meal prep area, the kitchen area, for lack of a better term, the portion they had the...
Just as an FYI, if someone has to say the kitchen area for lack of a better term, it's not a kitchen area. I hope you guys understand that.
Portions that were available for detainees, and they had the portions that were available for employees being prepared at the same time. The portions available for employees, large pieces of roast chicken, large sausages, and the detainees' lunches were a small to gray turkey and cheese sandwich, an apple and chips, and that's it. We're talking about fully grown men being fed very small portions. Let's be clear.
And that is, by the way, during congressional oversight. So this is their version of a cleaned up camp.
It's a bit hard to take from someone who would celebrate these conditions in Gaza.
It really is. I very much despise this woman. But that being said, the information we are receiving is still good and useful in this particular situation. Thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs, Sakit Tanuki. I do appreciate that. And ultimately, we know what the conditions within this camp are like based on testimony from people inside of it. And understand that when they're talking about the food made for the guards, food made for the detainees, this was the good version of the food made for detainees. This was the good version. They other reports from this same camp after it had been in operation for like a week were that like the food was moldy and like had vermin inside of it, had like bugs and shit. This is the better version. And I do want to really emphasize here, they are arresting people and putting them in this camp solely based on skin color. And you don't have to believe me on that one because, well, this is an interesting little report here. Wow. Again, from Aaron Reichlin Melnick. Wow, a lawyer told Miami Herald that a Florida Highway Patrol agent told her that they were calling Border Patrol to investigate anyone who appears Hispanic that they pull over. Now, this is Florida Highway Patrol telling a lawyer. One of the active agents enforcing this told a lawyer that they're arresting anyone who appears Hispanic that they pull over. Let's read this. Magdalena Cupris said she has 3 clients at the state facility. In the case of one of her clients, a Honduran man with a pending asylum application as a victim of human trafficking, which, like, holy shit! Imagine you're a victim of human trafficking, and now you're being trafficked by the U.S. government. Cupris said she was able to land a bond hearing, but she remains puzzled by his detention. She said her client was originally held at a U.S. Customs and Border Protection building in Dania Beach for about a week after he was stopped at a truckway station in Florida by Florida Highway Patrol officers on June 25th. He has a valid driver's license, Cupris said. She still doesn't know why he was detained that day. The Honduran man called her when he was stopped, and an FHP officer took the phone and told her that anyone who appears Hispanic needs to be sent to CBP to have their license verified, she said. Cupris didn't name her client publicly, but the Herald/Times was able to independently confirm he is a detainee at the facility. So they're saying, oh, well, we have to verify your documents. It doesn't even matter if you have valid documents in Florida. They're saying, oh, yep, look, we got to verify the documents. So we got to send you to the concentration camp. That's what's happening. It's real bad, guys. It's real bad, guys. They're just arresting anyone brown. Yeah, I honestly, fucking get out of Florida. And understand, there's a real human cost to all of this. Okay? There's a real human cost to all of this. One of those costs is that nursing homes are going to be forced to shut down because they cannot hire enough staff. Immigrants have historically been a huge component of the labor that keeps nursing homes running. And a lot of people don't want to work at nursing homes. So there are industries that are just going to shut down because there's no one left who's willing to take the risk to do that kind of work because it just makes them an easy target for ICE. Okay. Additionally, the cost to children who are U.S. citizens, this is awful. From the Santa Barbara Independent. God, I've been talking for a long time. Children left alone after mothers arrested in immigration raid. I just hope I get my mom back, says 15-year-old Juan Martinez, who is now caring for his brothers 8 and 9. Our government is disappearing mothers, ripping apart families, and forcing children to take care of themselves. Because you know what? If 15-year-old Juan Martinez doesn't take care of his brothers, what ends up happening is they all get ripped apart in foster care. Thursday morning, 15-year-old Juan Martinez received a frantic call from his mother. She told him immigration and customs enforcement agents were right outside the Glass House Farms complex where she worked and would enter at any moment. She was rushed, said Martinez. She was panicking. Martinez didn't know what to do. It was really, really stressful. He said, I couldn't drive over there. I couldn't do anything. I was helpless. The next communication from Martinez's mother came at 11:36 a.m., close to the end of her regular 3 a.m. to 12 p.m. shift. In a hushed voice text, she said she was in custody in a van and being taken to Los Angeles. She told him to take care of his brothers, and that made me cry, Martinez said. An undocumented migrant from Guerrero, Mexico. She had been living and working in Southern California for 16 years and has no criminal record, Martinez said. Martinez has not heard from her since. Meanwhile, he's doing his best to look after his two siblings, ages 8 and 9. I'm actually really lost right now, he said. I don't know what to tell them because I don't want them to freak out because they're little. They're little kids. Martinez said their home has enough food to last them the next few days, and he's in touch with family members in Northern California to decide what to do next. I'm trying to figure all that out, he said. He's also been speaking with a Santa Barbara attorney who's trying to stop his mother's deportation. In previous administrations, Anaya said, ICE agents would use discretion when determining who to arrest during their enforcement operations. Parents or guardians of young children would often not be detained and instead receive a summons to appear in court. Now, Anaya said anyone and everyone is being captured in the dragnets. There is a real human cost to immigrants disappearing from our communities, to our grandmothers and grandfathers, to the children who live and play in our communities. There is a cost to these people disappearing. They're human beings. They are part of our homes. And I believe I've talked about this article before, but this piece in The Atlantic is, at the very least, interesting. An interesting look at how the internal psychology of these Gestapo officers is faring. Trump loves ICE. Its workforce has never been so miserable. And honestly, bully them harder. Honestly, make it so toxic to admit that you work for ICE that people will spit on you if you're in public and they find out that's what you do. You cage people for a living. You hunt people for a living. This should be at one of the most despicable things someone can admit to you. They should understand that taking a paycheck from this organization makes them like an untouchable in our society. And it's genuinely awful. Yeah. As angry onlookers attempt to shame ICE officers with obscenities and activists try to dox them, officers are retreating further behind masks and tactical gear. It's miserable, one career ICE official told me. He called the job mission impossible. I recently spoke with a dozen current and former ICE agents and officers about morale at the agency since Trump took office. Most spoke on the condition of anonymity for fear of losing their job or being subjected to a polygraph exam. They described varying levels of dissatisfaction, but weren't looking to complain or expecting sympathy, certainly not at a time when many Americans have been disturbed by video clips of masked and hooded officials or officers seizing immigrants who are not engaged in any obvious criminal behavior. The frustration isn't yet producing mass resignations or major internal protests, but the officers and agents describe the workforce on edge, vilified by broad swaths of the public, and bullied by Trump officials demanding more and more. Despite Trump's public praise for ICE officers, several staffers told me that they feel contempt from administration officials who have implied they were too passive, too comfortable under the Biden administration. Some ICE employees believe the shift in priorities is driven by a political preoccupation with deportation numbers rather than keeping communities safe. Yeah, no shit, Sherlocks. No fucking shit. We're starting to feel like maybe this is a political endeavor, and when we're arresting the abuelita trying to sell mangoes on this, by the road, maybe we're not actually keeping our communities safe. Yeah, no shit. At ICE's Homeland Security Investigations Division, which has long focused on cartels and major drug trafficking operations, supervisors have waived agents off new cases so they have more time to make immigration enforcement arrests. A veteran agent told me, quote, "No drug cases, no human trafficking, no child exploitation," the agent said. "It's infuriating. The longtime ICE employee is thinking about quitting rather than having to continue arresting gardeners." Yeah, it's honestly just like a lot of these guys basically saying we need more facilities. We need more manpower. We can't do everything they're asking us to do. And it's just like, it's just dissatisfaction with the mechanism, the system that they are in, rather than the actual content of what they're doing. They've already been trained to view the people they're detaining as subhuman. Now, I do think, and I saw this idea being floated, and I think that unfortunately it has some legs to it, which is the idea of people who have quit ICE potentially should be elevated and like used as like rallying points to say, yeah, what ICE is doing right now is beyond abhorrent. So there is a part in this article here. Several career officials have been pushed out of leadership roles. Other employees have decided to quit. Adam Boyd, a 33-year-old attorney who resigned from ICE's legal department last month, told me he left because the mission was no longer about protecting the homeland from threats. Quote, it became a contest of how many deportations could be reported to Stephen Miller by December, Boyd said. He told me that he saw frustration among ICE attorneys whose cases were dismissed just so officer teams could grab their clients in the hallways for fast-track deportations that pad the stats. Some detainees had complex claims that attorneys have to screen before their initial hearings to ensure due process. Others have strong asylum cases were likely to end up back in court later anyway. The hallway arrests sent the message that the immigration courts were just a convenient place to handcuff people. Some ICE attorneys, quote, are only waiting until their student loans are forgiven and then they're leaving, he said. And it's like, I think maybe like if we get like some kind of sympathetic person to like throw up there and be like, yeah, this guy is a whistleblower. He's showing that this is actually not at all about justice and is in fact just vilifying immigrants because they're brown, because Stephen Miller's a goddamn racist. Like, that might be an effective way to like reach some people. I don't know. Like, I'm kind of looking for additional ideas. How do you reach people who aren't reached by the stories we've already gone over? This has been a hugely long segment. How do you reach people whose heart hasn't been stirred to action by what we've talked about already? They get their student loans forgiven for being in ICE. Yeah, a lot of government people who work for the U.S. government get their student loans forgiven. You can't? I mean, I think maybe you can, but I genuinely don't know. My hope is always that you can reach someone with the right message, but I genuinely don't know. But ultimately, guys, I think there are a couple paths forward here. The answer is if this is all we can reach, if everything we've covered so far is the entirety of what we can actually reach with our messaging, then so be it. What do we have left to do? Well, here is a story that, I don't know, made me feel some measure of hope. Let's take a look at this.
The latest video to send shockwaves from San Diego Immigration Court through the immigrant community is actually not of an immigrant, but a 71-year-old U.S. citizen named Barbara Stone.
I was surprised. It felt like an out-of-body experience.
Stone was handcuffed and held by federal agents for 8 hours on Tuesday, according to her family.
This is from the handcuffs, so I have a large bruise there. I feel mentally and psychologically traumatized.
In video of the incident, which was shared with NBC7, you see the moment tensions boiled over and an officer says Stone pushed her. She pushed me. Stone denied.
She pushed me. Fuck off. Like, biggest fucking babies. You work for the literal U.S. Gestapo. No, this 71-year-old lady pushed me. Fuck off. God, that makes me so mad. But genuinely, if a 71-year-old lady can go out there and resist ICE, so can you. If a 71-year-old lady can go out there and stand up for what's right, so can you.
That NBC7 made several attempts to contact ICE about the incident, but was referred to a different agency under the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Protective Service, and we've yet to hear back. NBC7 spoke with Stone's husband, Gershon Shafir, the day his wife was detained.
She is a soft-spoken person who was here to protect innocent refugees. And she is the last person in the universe who would hit agent or interfere with their work.
Stone was at the court to observe proceedings and how the federal agents act, which is legal and, according to Ruth Mendez of Detention Resistance, a First Amendment right.
The fear is very, very here, and the volunteers that are showing up today are now coming knowing that there might be a risk of our own detention.
Understand, remember earlier when we talked about how ICE has been fabricating stories of assault? This is exactly what we're talking about. They don't have proof that that lady pushed that ICE agent, and she's a 71-year-old lady, and that woman was very clearly, like, I don't know, 25. And, like, they aren't going to try and substantiate that in court. What they're going to do is they're going to slap bogus assault charges on this 71-year-old lady and then drop them after a couple weeks. That's exactly what's going to happen with cases like this. They attempt to intimidate you and waste your time and effort and energy to dissuade you and people like you from getting involved and resisting what they are doing. The Gestapo shit.
No charges have been pressed against Stone, but her family says her phone was confiscated. Mendez worries there will be invisible impacts, like people deciding not to volunteer. You hear an officer in the video suggest more people could have been detained.
Clear the way. Everybody's going to start getting detained.
The message that it sent was very clear. For us to be afraid to come back and do the work that we're doing.
But Stone, for one, is determined to go back and continue that work.
We are all immigrants. We all came from other countries. I find it surreal.
Stone says she had to ask several times for a lawyer. We're still waiting to get more information from Homeland Security.
And we're still waiting to get more information from Homeland Security. But if that 71-year-old lady can be manhandled by ICE and still be willing to go back in the fray, you all can be brave too. I know that it's scary. I know that it's really intimidating. But we, each and every one of us, have the capacity to contribute to this resistance in the way we can. And we must. And I'm going to share one last thing to kind of round out this incredibly long segment. And it's a Substack written by Ezra Levin. He's one of the co-founders of Indivisible. And he wrote a Substack titled, What I Heard at an ICE Detention Facility. And I'm just going to read it in its entirety for y'all because I think it is, I think it's important. Okay? So here we go. Yesterday, I protested outside an ICE detention facility and visited with an Indivisible member detained there. As I covered last week, with the passage of the big bullshit bill, ICE is now the largest law enforcement agency in the country. So I want to tell you about my experiences this weekend because I think a lot of us, especially us white native-born Americans, are going to need to get better acquainted with these secret police headquarters in the weeks and months to come. This action took place as part of Washington State's statewide convening in Tacoma. Across the country, we're seeing Indivisible statewide groups host these types of statewide convenings to bring local Indivisible groups together, build connections across the movement, and develop strategic plans for coordinated local, state, and federal action. If you're looking for inspiration, take a look at Washington's agenda. At their two-day convening, Washington State Indivisible group leaders heard from their state and federal elected officials trained on responding to ICE by local immigrant rights groups and co-designed campaigns to put into place at the local and state levels. I sat in on a campaign strategy breakout session on demasking ICE. When Indivisible groups around the state started planning a local and state campaign to use their blue state and blue city power to push back on Trump's secret police force. One member of Indivisible, Skagit, was notably not present, Lalo. You can read about his story in The Guardian. Lalo is a farm worker, organizer, and community leader. He joined Indivisible Skagit to help link the Indivisible world with the farm worker world. But he was detained earlier this year when an ICE agent broke the window of his car with his wife in the passenger seat and forced him out. He's been held in the Northwest ICE Processing Center in Tacoma for the last 111 days. While a crowd gathered outside, singing, chanting, and playing music in solidarity with Lalo, I visited with him in this privately run detention center, a dystopian scene in a remote part of Tacoma. I asked Lalo if he had a message to share with those gathered outside and the many more he knew were rooting for him. He did, and it was simple. Keep paying attention. Keep organizing. Just as we were getting ready to hit send on this newsletter, we learned that Lalo had opted for voluntary departure to Mexico due to the inhumane conditions at the detention center. The cruelty here really is the point. In a statement today, Lalo committed to remaining in the fight for justice wherever he ends up, and he urged all of us to do the same. I encourage everyone to stay strong and keep fighting. There are many actions you can be a part of. For example, show up at a protest, attend your city council meetings, use your First Amendment right, talk to your representatives, let them know your concerns. I'm furious at what this vicious regime is doing to Lalo. I also know they're doing it to thousands of others. This regime is ripping people away from their families, tearing communities apart, disappearing our parents, siblings, neighbors, and friends to unimaginable conditions in camps here and abroad. You can contribute to Lalo's legal fund here. I'll link the entire article, which has a couple of supporting links. And I hope you'll follow his advice to keep organizing, keep taking action. We've got a number of to-dos below, and I especially want to pull out number 2 on the list, our 1 Million Rising series on strategic non-cooperation. That's Wednesday, and we'll have a special What's the Plan on Thursday with authoritarianism expert Erica Chenoweth of 3.5% fame as a guest. If you're looking for next steps, this is it. In solidarity, Ezra Levin, co-executive director of Indivisible. And I'm going to show it on screen here so you can see. Weekly to-dos. Prepare to march this Thursday at a Good Trouble Lives On Day action near you. Each day brings new attacks on our rights as the Trump regime chips away at our democracy, but in the tradition of the late John Lewis, Americans across the country will rise up this Thursday in a mass nonviolent demonstration for freedom and justice. Learn the tools of strategic non-cooperation to fight authoritarianism at our 1 Million Rising training series beginning this Wednesday. There's no escaping it. Trump and his enablers are becoming bolder, and our slide toward authoritarianism is accelerating. With institutions failing to meet the challenge, it falls to us, the pro-democracy majority, to defeat fascism. Join this training to help lead the fight within your networks and pass on these skills to others. Contact state and local Dems to demand action against masked ICE abductions. If you live in a blue city or state with a Democratic trifecta, your Democratic governor, mayor, and lawmakers have the power to stop secret police tactics like abductions by masked ICE agents. Our blue state defiance toolkit helps people to identify who to contact and what to call for. Number 4, join our Fight Back with Friends training on Tuesday, July 22nd. For new tools to help get your friends and family off the sidelines. We all know someone who wants to join our fight, but isn't sure where to start. Fight Back with Friends is a new program designed to break down that barrier. Each call details ways to get your friends involved in specific, impactful tactics to defend our rights, our safety, and our democracy. Tuesdays will focus on our upcoming 1 Million Rising campaign. More info below. Join our What's the Plan call on Thursday at Indivisible. Co-founders break down the latest news and take questions from the movement. By the way, I cannot emphasize enough how useful I have found these. It's good stuff. Let's see. Check out Truth Brigade tools for pushing back on the regime's efforts to silence dissent. Americans care deeply about free speech, so enemies of the First Amendment have to justify their attacks on constitutionally protected speech with lies and fear-mongering. This month, our Disinformation Fighting Truth Brigade team has some expertly crafted messaging you can share to help expose those authoritarian tactics. And again, pitch for the anti-authoritarian 1 Million Rising training, which... Again, mark your calendars. Here are the three different dates: July 16th, July 30th, August 13th. Mark them on your calendars. It's quite important. Also, Kid Not Kin, thank you very much for the raid. So it's, you kind of got your marching orders here. Go to your local Indivisible meetings. Go to your local Indivisible protests. Get trained up. Figure out how to get others in your life trained up and make a difference. We each and every one of us have to pull our weight when it comes to this stuff. That's what we got to do. So I'm a little emotionally burnt out by that. I don't know about you guys.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, dating, flame more. Your sense of fashion, you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.